Hey guys, it's Miss Allers. Sorry I couldn't be here today, but I have a really fun lesson planned for you guys that has to do with the artist that you just learned about. His name is Jim Dine. I'm just giving you a shot of what the supplies are like for today. You're going to have a new special bucket at your table. You're going to need the green brush, a water bucket. You're going to need a Sharpie and pencil. You have a bag that's labeled just for looking, and you have a big sheet of paper or your sketchbook, depending on if you're doing your sloppy copy or your final copy. So we're learning about Jim Dine, and we're talking about creativity, and we're talking about how Jim liked to show that he loves art and he loves art making by representing that in a painting. So he looked at his tools of his trade, which would be paintbrushes, wrenches, hammers, things like that, and he drew from them, or sometimes even traced them. So I have a bag labeled just for looking, and I know it's backwards because I'm in selfie mode, but these are brushes that are just for looking. You're not going to use them for painting, you're just going to use them for drawing. So you're going to get a couple of these out and you're going to put them on your final paper, except I forgot. I have nothing on my final paper, so the first thing I'm going to write is my name and class code. And remember, if you don't put this part, then I have no clue who this belongs to. So you're going to put B-5, B-4, B-3, B-2, B-1. Whatever your class code is, so I know whose paper is whose and whose color group you're in and all that fun stuff. So there's a lot of cool paintbrushes in here that you could choose from. You can please take them all out and look at which ones you really like. Just make sure they get back in the bag. And there's not enough for everybody to have 10, so you might have to share or use one brush at a time. I have some really cool Japanese, Chinese bamboo brushes. They're made of bamboo. I have some foamy ones. I have some little ones. I have some giant ones. I have some really long ones. And I'm going to kind of set them up on my paper the way I like them. And you can either trace them. Like I think I'm going to take one of these really wide ones and a long one and kind of set them up on my paper. And I'm going to use them like a stencil. So I'm going to hold on to the paintbrush with one hand and trace around the outside of my paintbrush with the pencil hand. This is harder than it seems. Ugh, okay, there is one paintbrush that I have traced. So now all I have to do is go back in and add things like this metal part, which is where the brushes are glued in and attached to the wooden handle. So I think I might draw that detail just like Jim did, and he added lots of texture where the hairs were. And I'm going to show you what that looks like on mine here in a minute. And I noticed there's another little bump, a couple bumps here. I bet this is where it really has to snug on and snap onto this wooden handle. So I'm going to add some of those bumps too, because those details really help make my art look a little bit more realistic. And when I look a little closer too on my paintbrushes, I notice there's like, if you look close, you can see like the brand name, you can see some serial numbers, some barcodes. So if I was an artist that liked to go above and beyond, those are different details that you can add to really make your art just super realistic. So the brand of this brush is called Dynasty. It has a big paint blob on it, so it's hard for me to read. Dynasty. So I think I'm going to add that detail. So I have my first brush. And notice I kind of did it diagonally. I'm going to try to use up the space as best as I can. So in the checklist, 6 paintbrushes is what you're going to represent. And then 2 of them are going to overlap, which means one is in front of the other. And second graders should be really good at overlap because we practiced that earlier this year. But that also means that 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders should have learned that in 2nd grade too. I know that my 1st graders are just getting good at overlap, so they should know that one thing in front of another means overlap. And I'm doing another brush here that has a little bit different style to it. Adding those textured marks, and I'll show you what that looks like. Got a couple of them. Your next steps are going to be to add Sharpie. You're going to want to Sharpie all your pencil lines. Now I've only done 2 brushes, I still have to add more, but I'm going to add the Sharpie and then I'm going to start to add the paint. The very last step is going to be what's called your drop shadow. That's what's going to make your art have a shadow and your objects look a little bit more realistic. They're going to really pop off the page. I think I'm going to fast forward this part so it's not as boring, okay? All right, I am back. So I just spent the last like about, I don't know, maybe 10-15 minutes drawing and sharpening all my tools. So I set them down, I traced them, and then I sharpied over them with my Sharpie and then went back and erased any pencil lines that I saw. And what's cool about these paintings is they can really go in a lot of different directions. So I did 7 paintbrushes because I noticed when I did my 2 that overlapped, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's my foam brush up there. It looks kind of like this. I noticed that there was like this weird blank space up here, so I decided to go above and beyond and make a choice as an artist to add one more to use up my space really well. So now I've finished all my paintbrushes and I'm ready to add some paint, and this part is really fun. I have set out 6 different colors, all the colors of the rainbow, so you'll have the primaries and the secondaries. And right now they're in these little containers that look like this. These are liquid watercolors. They're not permanent, but they're a little bit darker than the hockey puck paints, the temper cakes, and sometimes they leak really easily. So make sure you have your wet rag handy. That being said, they also are liquidy and watery, so if you're not careful when you take the lid off or when you're at your table space, if you bump the table, they could spill. So if you do spill, you're not in trouble. It's not the end of the world. Just let the sub know. She can refill it for you and get you what you need, okay? But be very careful. That being said, too, make sure that when you paint, oh, I just lost my train of thought. Oh, I remember what I was gonna say. Making sure that you're not going to mix the colors. So if I have red brush right now, I need to make sure I'm not gonna dip my red brush in the purple. I probably need to clean out my brush. That's what my water bucket was really handy for, before I get like a purple, okay? And you should be able to have enough space to share these watercolors with your table. So no one needs to hog the red to themselves. No one needs to hog the purple to themselves. It's just kind of like a little swish in this little container, maybe blot some extra paint away. And then what I'm doing when I'm adding my paint, and I'll hold it up here in a second so you can see what I'm doing, is I'm giving each paintbrush a little paint, okay? You don't have to add paint blob to each paintbrush, but what I do think you should practice is using the toothbrush to add those details. So what's cool about the toothbrush, and there's not enough for everyone, so you're gonna have to share. I want you guys to dip the toothbrush into whatever watercolor you would like, and I want you guys to use the flick method. So I'm gonna show you the flick method before I get paint on there. The flick method, so if you have paint on your toothbrush, I want you to listen to it. Maybe you can hear it on my iPad. You can see that, ooh, that's cool. You can see the dust. That's old paint coming off of here, which is fine. It's not gonna ruin your painting. So I'm gonna dip my toothbrush in a little bit of paint. And now that I have a little bit of paint on my toothbrush, I'm going to go ahead and splatter it with that same technique onto my painting. Thank goodness I have those tablecloths down, huh? And I'm gonna set down my toothbrush for a minute and show you what it turned out to look like. Pretty cool, huh? So we're not gonna be splattering like that. We're gonna be using toothbrushes to make those splatters. So if you need to rinse out your toothbrush, you can either do that in your water bucket, you can do that in the sink. The closer you get to your paper, I think the bigger your splatters are gonna be. You don't want your toothbrush up here while you're flicking it. You want it pretty close to your painting. So this was a purple one I just did, and I did some green splatters too, okay? Now I'm not covering up a lot of my painting. I'm just giving it a few splatters here and there, just like Jim Dine did in his paintings. So remember, a little bit is great. A lot is really overwhelming. So you want to kind of think about the amount of splatters you're adding. Sometimes if too much is a bad thing. So you kind of want a happy medium of the right amount of splatters. Okay, I think I'll do one more splatter, and then I'm going to let my painting dry and show you the last step. Okay, let's do some blue. Ooh, I got some bigger splatters on this one. Can't wait to show you. I'm going to do it very carefully because I have a feeling it might drip. Ah, pretty cool. So now I need to let this dry a little bit because the last step that I'm going to add to my painting needs to have a dry surface, and I can't add it while my paint is wet. Okay, so the last step is going to be grabbing this bag that's labeled, and of course it's backwards, charcoal. And charcoal is the word that we use when we talk about this chalky little twig. It looks like this up close. It's just a piece of black chalk almost, and you can practice a little bit on your tablecloth. It's really fragile, so be careful when you hold it, and it's really dusty. It'll make your fingers really dirty. So what's cool about the charcoal is it's great for adding shadows. So I'm gonna pick one side of my paintbrush, and I'll hold it up so you can see it in a minute. And I'm gonna draw a dark line using the charcoal and show you that dark line that I drew with my charcoal. Now what's even cooler about the charcoal is when I use my finger, I can do a little bit of smearing on that charcoal line to make it look even more realistic. And that, my friends, is called a drop shadow. That's gonna make your art really come to life and make everything look a little bit more realistic. So a drop shadow only goes on one side of your paintbrushes. You're not gonna do a drop shadow on both sides. So like, I'm gonna show you how I did my overlapping paintbrushes really quick so you guys can see what I mean by that. I didn't do both sides of the paintbrush. I just did one side of the paintbrush. So these are my overlapping paintbrushes. I did it on this side of the one that's on top and this side of the one that's underneath. I didn't do it on this side and I didn't do it on this side. Okay, do you see that? And that's really gonna make your, whoop, it's almost like 3D, they're popping off the page like that, right? So that's the last step to your painting. After that, you're all finished and you're gonna hang it up in the hall probably later, or you're gonna put it on the drying rack maybe, or in the folder so that we can hang it up later. You guys are more than welcome now to free draw, free paint, work on the mayonnaise jar, the things that you do. You guys should know the drill when you're done with something, what you move on to next. But you gotta be making art after this. And I can't wait to see you guys on Wednesday and all the amazing art that you made. Bye guys.